This is the live podcast with Manuel, living in full expression. Most of us treat busyness as proof of progress. If we're tired, sweating, and full, it must mean we're moving forward. But motion and progress are not the same thing. And some of the busiest people you know haven't covered any real distance in years. The treadmill will make you sweat every single time. It will never take you anywhere. The uncomfortable truth is that a lot of what looks like hard work is actually a very sophisticated way of avoiding a fear we haven't named. And living in full expression means having the honesty to check the dashboard against the actual ground beneath your feet. Few days ago, I was on a treadmill, running, sweating, breathing very hard. The dashboard in front of me was telling me I had covered 3 miles, but except I hadn't gone anywhere. Same wall in front of me the entire time, no wind, no changing scenery, no actual ground beneath me that had moved an inch. And it hit me right there, mid-run. This is exactly what so many of us are doing with our lives. We are busy sweating, we are tired, we are by every internal measurement working very hard, and we have not covered any real distance at all. Welcome to the live podcast with me, your host Manuel, and in today's episode, we're going to be talking about the treadmill effect and why it's really about laziness. It's almost always about fear. So if you're ready, let's get started. So I want to be very specific about what happened on that treadmill because the details matters. So I was busy sweating, my legs were tired, my heart rate was up. Every physical signal my body could give me said, you are working hard right now. And the machine agreed. It had a number on the screen, distance covered. But none of it was real, as you all know. I never left that spot. I never felt the wind change. I never saw a single new thing. All of the effort, none of the movement. Now, here's where I want you to go with me. Think about the entrepreneur who spends 18 months on market research, competitors analysis, and building the perfect pitch deck and never launches. I want you to also think about the person endlessly reorganizing their to-do list. Color coding their planner, optimizing their morning routine, while the one conversation or the one decision that would actually move their lives sit untouched. I want you to think about the relationship where both people are constantly busy managing the logistics of being together and have quietly stopped actually being present with each other. All that is sweat. Real tiredness, real hours spent, but none of it was covered in a distance. So, we talked in our previous episode about success trap, about the hidden fear that grows inside visible achievement. Now, the treadmill effect is the mirror image of that. It's actually the hidden fear that grows inside visible busyness. Different symptom, same root. Now, here's a distinction I want you to hold for the rest of this episode. There's a difference between a dashboard number and a real ground covered. A dashboard number is anything you can point to that looks like effort, while real ground is a result that exists in the world whether or not you are the one measuring it. A launched product, a sent email, a difficult conversation actually hard, but the treadmill only ever gives you the first one. Now, I want to tell you about someone I coached, and I will keep the details general because the specifics of the story matter far less than what we uncovered underneath it. So he came to me wanting to start a business. Clear vision, real skill, genuine capability, and every session he would tell me about the research he'd done and he's doing, following the right account, reading the right threads, saying in his words, up to date on the industry, and you can go on and name it. Weeks passed, then months. The research never stopped. The business never started. So in one section, I asked him directly, what would happen if you stop researching today and launch something small this week? He got quiet. Then he said something I want you to sit with, because I think a lot of us are living inside this exact sentence without having to say it out loud. He said he had had other businesses before and they had failed. And somewhere along the way, the scrolling, the endless research, the staying current had actually quietly became a way of staying busy without ever having to risk failing again. I sat quiet and I looked at him. He wasn't lazy. He wasn't unmotivated, but he was on a treadmill, sweating through hours of research every single day, while the real ground, the actual launch, never moved an inch closer. What if this doesn't work? What if it fails again? What if people see it and reject it in a way they rejected the last ones? Those questions are normal. Every person building anything worth building has asked them, including myself talking to you. What's not okay is staying paralyzed by them, disguised as diligence for months at a time. Now, this session is the reason this episode exists, because I've watched this pattern in more people than I can count, and I lived a version of it myself before I learned to name it. So I want to do something with you right now that I did with him in that session, not rhetorical questions. I mean real ones. Now I want you to find a moment where you can sit right now, if it's convenient for you to do so and safe for you to do so. And I'm going to take you through layers on how to uncover this and name it rightly. Now let's look at layer number one, the surface awareness. So the question is, what is your treadmill right now? Think about where you are putting real hours, real effort, real sweat, and ask yourself honestly whether it is producing a result that exists outside of your own head, or whether it's just a number on a dashboard that makes you feel like you're moving. I want you to sit quietly with that question. Not what you think the answer should be, what actually comes up for you. If the honest answer is uncomfortable, I want you to know that that's not weakness. That is a data that we need to work with in this episode. All right, let's move to layer number two, and I call this the root identification. All right, now we're going to go deeper. The question is this: what are you actually afraid would happen if you stepped off that treadmill and did the real thing instead? I don't mean the polished answer, I mean the raw one. What's underneath the research, the planning, the business? Is it the fear of failing again? The fear of being rejected? The fear of finding out that the idea or the relationship or the plan wasn't as good as you hoped? I want you to trace it back. Where did you first learn that failing meant something dangerous about who you are, rather than something that simply happens on the way of something working? Whatever came up for you just now, that is exactly where we need to go. That fear has formed somewhere specific in your heart, in your mind. It made sense once. It might not be serving you anymore right now. So let's go to layer number three, which is what I call separation and reorientation. Now, here's a distinction that changes everything. Failing at something is not the same as being a failure. Sometimes we've heard this over and over again, but when it comes to real application of it, we find it difficult to apply. Now, one is an event. The other is an identity you may have quietly assigned yourself after that event, without ever questioning whether it was true. I want to say that again. One is an event. while the other is our identity. You may have quietly assigned yourself after that event without ever questioning whether it was true. So the question now becomes, what evidence do you already have that you have survived failure before and that it didn't end you? Not what you fear might happen. I mean, what has actually happened in your life the last time something didn't work? So here's the real question. If failing again wouldn't actually destroy you, only cost you something temporary and recoverable, what is the treadmill actually protecting you from? I want you to sit with that and let it sink. What is one small real ground action, not research, not planning, not another lap on the treadmill? I mean, that you could take this week despite the fear being present. Not once it's gone, I mean, while it's still there. Because courage is not the absence of fear or absence of danger, but is the boldness to take that step despite the fear. Because that's where the shift is. Not eliminating the fear, but moving anyway, with it still in the room. So, having said that, I want to take you through a framework that will help you get off the treadmill. And this will help you turn what just surfaced for you into something real. And these are just 3 moves that I'm going to give you right now that would help you do that. All right? So move number 1, we're going to run the dashboard test. That's what I'm going to call it, running the dashboard test. Now, this is how it goes. For anything you are spending real hours on, ask one question. Does this exist in the world independent of me? Or does it only exist as a number I track for myself? Maybe you didn't get that. I want to repeat that again. For anything you're spending your real hours on, I want you to ask this one question. Does this exist in the world independent of me? Or does it only exist as a number I track for myself? Because hours researched, posts read, plans revised, these are dashboard numbers. A sent proposal, a launched product, a conversation actually had, these are real ground covered. So look at the difference and ask yourself, where are you on that phase? Now let's look at move number 2. Naming the fear out loud. So, say the actual sentence, I am avoiding, then you mention the real action, because I am afraid of the specific fear. Let me repeat that also. I want you to say the exact sentence. Say, I am avoiding, you mention the real action, because I am afraid of, you mention the specific fear. For example, you are avoiding to launch your business because you are afraid of failing. That's an example you can use. So you name that particular thing and what you are avoiding. Now say it to yourself. It begins from telling to yourself and then to a coach, and maybe to a trusted friend. The moment you share this, the sentence loses the power the moment it's spoken out plainly instead of running quietly in the background of every busy day. So do that. Start by telling it to yourself, I'm avoiding this action because I am afraid of this. Now you're calling out the fear out. And the more you call out the fear, the more it loses its grip. And remember that you can do anything. The only thing stopping you is the limit you have put for yourself. Now, let me take you through move number 3. The move number 3 is to take one real ground step this week. Not the whole journey. I don't mean the whole journey. What one step, what one action that exists outside your own head right now that you can take? Maybe send the email, maybe launch a mini version of your business or your program. Have that conversation. It will feel far more exposed than another lap on the treadmill. That exposure is the actual distance being covered. And if you want to walk through this fully, right, I've also provided a premium worksheet that walks you through identifying your specific treadmill, naming the fear underneath it, and building your first real ground step with a deadline attached. Because this is where the changes happen. After you have named the fear, you need to ask yourself, What one action can I take right now, immediately right now, when the energy is high, that would give me the momentum I need to keep pushing? Because if you don't do that, you keep dwelling in that fear, even when you have named it. If you have not taken an action in line with what you have decided to do, you will remain in that ditch. All right. So in closing, I want to give you 3 things to walk away with in this episode. Number 1 is this: busyness is not proof of progress. Check your dashboard against the real actual work. What does it show you? Are you just sweating on the treadmill without making real impact or real progress in direction to where you want to go? You need to be honest about this. Number 2 is this: the treadmill is really about laziness. It doesn't mean you're lazy. It doesn't mean you're weak. It doesn't mean you don't know what to do. It's almost always a sophisticated way of avoiding a fear you haven't named. Number 3, failing at something and being a failure are 2 different things. And I want you to know this. Only one of them is actually true about you. So you must distinguish between these 2. The fact that you failed in your previous business, you failed in your previous relationship, you failed in that endeavor you got into, doesn't mean you're a failure. It's only an event. But the moment you interpret this event to mean your identity, it becomes your identity and you begin to live under that limitation. So you must be able to separate yourself from the event, and this way you're able to get through with whatever you have set your heart to achieve. This week, I want you to name your treadmill. Say the fear out loud, unveil the fear, unmask the fear, because that way it will lose its power. Then you take one step that exists outside of your own head, even while the fear is still sitting right next to you. Because that way, you're going to dismantle the grip of that fear on you. And remember, this week's premium worksheet is available on the show notes. You go and get it. I use it to build it fully. Because living in full expression means covering the real distance. Not just about producing real sweat. I mean producing the real impact, producing the real results, because that's the only way you live in full expression. Living beyond the fear, living beyond the limitations, living beyond whatever it is that have made you to become short of who you are. This has been the Life Podcast with me, your host, Manuel. And until I come your way in our next episode, get off the treadmill this week and keep living in full expression.